Hare Krishna Maharaj, obeisances to you.
Hare
Sorry I'm late.
Krishna, Kendra Prabhu.
Jai, Jai, Jai. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Vishnupad Puramansa Pariprajaka Ashto Tarasat Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Shama Kund Radha Gunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you everyone for being here for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Monday, August 29th, 2022, and we are reading in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7th chapter. My notes have us starting with verse number 12. Am I behind one, or are we right on?
No, you're right on.
So we're starting with verse 12 tonight. We're very eager to hear everyone's questions and comments, and I'll be posting links. Please share this class with your friends, and we're so glad you could be with us tonight, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Akendra Prabhu, and thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Savai Nivritti Dharmena Vasudevanukampaya Bhagavat Bhakti Yogena Tirodhate Shanayariha. But that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment. Purport. The quivering quality of material existence, which comes from identification with matter, or from thinking oneself under the material influence of sorry, let's do that again. The quivering quality of material existence, which comes from identification with matter, or from thinking oneself under the material influence of philosophical speculation to be God, can be eradicated by devotional service to the Lord, by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. As discussed in the first canto, because the application of devotional service to Lord Vasudeva invites pure knowledge, it quickly detaches one from the material conception of life, and thus revives one's normal condition of spiritual existence. Even in this life, and frees one from the material winds which cause one to quiver. Only knowledge and devotional service can elevate one toward the path of liberation. Development of knowledge for the purpose of knowing everything, without rendering devotional service, is considered fruitless labor, and one cannot get the desired result by such a labor of love. Lord Vasudeva is pleased by devotional service only, and thus his mercy is realized by association with pure devotees of the Lord. Pure devotees of the Lord are transcendental to all material desires, including the desire for the results of fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. If one wants to acquire the mercy of the Lord, he has to associate with pure devotees. Such association alone can, by degrees, release one from the quivering elements. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Shrayam Rupa Kodamahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Savai Nivritti Dharmena Vasudevanukampaya Bhagavat Bhakti Yogena Tirodhate Shanariva. You'll recall that we were hearing that our association with matter, which causes so much trouble, is illusory, just like the association of the moon with the water, which makes the moon seem to be tossing and turning and in so many ways breaking up and coming back together. All of that quivering has nothing to do with the actual moon. It's only because we're seeing the moon reflected in the water. So we're identifying ourselves with matter in a similar way, but we have nothing to do with matter. Asangokiyam Purusha. So that false association can gradually be left behind. Nivritti Dharmena and Bhakti Yogena, by devotional service performed in the mood of detachment. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Gyanam Cha Yadavaitaka. By devotional service rendered to the Supreme Lord, one automatically acquires knowledge and detachment also. So the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also came to teach Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, the detachment knowledge to give it to himself. This detachment is nivritti dharmina, and everything becomes possible vasudeva anukampaya, by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of God. In Kathopanishad, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo Nametaya Na Bahuna Shrutena. Then, let's see, what's next? Yam Vaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas. Yam Vaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas. Tasyaisha Atma Vrinute Tunum Swam. He ultimately reveals his own form to the devotee whom he favors. So, by the mercy of Krishna. And the mercy of Krishna is represented by the mercy of the devotees. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada says in so many ways that one has to associate with devotees. Only then can one realize the full benefit of devotional service. His mercy is realized by association with pure devotees. All right, are there some comments, questions? Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Why does Srila Prabhupada in his purport establish that development of knowledge without rendering devotional service is considered fruitless labor? Don't we have skyscrapers? Are we not flying the skies with our airplanes? We are expecting to colonize the moon and Mars in the very near future. Why call it fruitless labor? Why not progressive civilization? It's a progressive civilization of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So that's a progressive civilization of animals. Just to be advancing in knowledge of how to eat better, sleep better, and so on. That's animal life. What is the great claim to advancement? Progressive civilization means progress in knowledge and detachment. We're making progress, but we don't know who we are. We know we're making progress, but we don't know where we're going or whether we're going in the right direction. So we've got a civilization that's focused on economic development and sense gratification, but without knowledge of who we are, why we're suffering, what to do. We haven't made any progress in this business of freeing ourselves from this false identification with the quivering pools of water in which the moon is reflected. Yes, Sakendra Prabhu.
Oh, thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. I like this one sentence. It happens right in the middle of the purport. The development of knowledge for the purpose of knowing everything without rendering devotional service is considered fruitless labor, and one cannot get the desired result by such labor of love. First, it made me think how the development of knowledge for the purpose of knowing everything, it's like that's what the internet is for a lot of people. It's just like you can know everything. It's all right there. You just got to, sit there and search away, and wow, you can know so much. But then I love the labor of love. He calls it a labor of love, but it's a very polite and gentlemanly way of saying you're wasting your life. And in case you might want to comment on it further, I was peeking at the purport of Srila Vishwanath for this verse, and he basically equates the process of anartha nivritti with diminishment of the quivering quality mentioned in the previous verses.
Two things. One is this labor of love. I remember standing on an airport queue one time, And the fellow next to me was a young fellow who was involved somehow or other with NASA's Mars effort. And he was talking about it so enthusiastically. And I was thinking, you know, what a waste of time. You're so enthusiastic about something which has no value. As far as the anarthas, again, anartha means something which is, you know, unwanted, and unwanted quality or unwanted misery. But an anartha also means that which is meaningless. Anartha pasamam shaksha, superfluous, meaningless. So this whole idea of the moon quivering is meaningless. Or the idea of seeing my head cut off in a dream, that seeing is meaningless. So this meaningless picture of material existence is dissolved by spiritual knowledge. So in that way also the anarthas, one is freed from these both things. The anarthas, the miseries, the unwanted habits and so on, they're all integrated with this false picture of reality. So as that picture falls apart, the rest of it falls apart also. Okay, thank you. Saraswati.
Pranam Parampuja Maharaj. Maharaj, it's made quite clear how essential it is to associate with, well, it says pure devotees. That would be ideal, but I imagine you can just say devotees. But
Well,
I don't know.
Prabhupada one time said, all my devotees are pure devotees.
Okay. And I'm wondering if that is applicable for all yugas or just more so for Kali Yuga, because I'm thinking two devotees come to mind. One is Dhruva, who was practiced his spiritual perfection in solitude, and Maharaj Bharat, who did the same, but he fell down. And I'm wondering whether if he had association with devotees, if that might not have been the outcome of his spiritual life. But really, I'm just wondering, is this applicable for all yugas, or are we just really more applicable for Kali Yuga? Thank you, Maharaj.
Dhruva Maharaj wouldn't have gotten started without the mercy of Narad Muni. So even though Dhruva practiced in solitude, it was by the direction and guidance and mercy of Narada. So in that sense, Dhruva was not alone. I can't recall with Bharat Maharaj, but again, it's the same principle. One doesn't get devotional service on one's own. It depends on the mercy of a devotee. And even after getting the seed of devotional service, the association of devotees will be very important, and especially for us, essential. Yeah, Athena says Bharat Maharaj fell down because he was alone and did not have association with devotees. Yes, he was alone, and then the deer showed up, and then that derailed him. Prabhupada makes the point, Kendra says, about Bharat Maharaj, that his mistake was to not consult his guru regarding his deer cub adoption. Yeah, so again, for lack of association, lack of guidance, Bharat Maharaj fell down from the platform of Bhava. So the association of devotees, the mercy of devotees, guidance of devotees is so crucial. So the two examples illustrate the point rather than weaken it. Yes, Madhurika.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. So here, towards the end, Prabhupada says, if one wants to acquire the mercy of the Lord, he has to associate with pure devotees. So I guess offenses to devotees would be is something what would cause the mercy to be withdrawn, right?
Yeah, either to be withdrawn or for us to, it may still be extended, but then we're not properly taking advantage of it. It's like, the medicine that the doctor gives you, he's giving it to you, but if you're just putting it in the drawer or not following the directions for taking it, then you're getting the mercy, but you're throwing it away or neglecting it, or in some way canceling out the benefit. So the devotees may not stop being merciful, but we're not properly using their mercy if we offend them.
Okay, and just a leading question from that. So when it comes to offenses, where it's very clear about what the offenses to the holy name are, for example, but when it comes to offending the devotees, what exactly does that consist of? Is it anything and everything that would upset somebody else, or is there anything specific that we need to look out for?
We hear that there's offenses, bodily offenses, verbal offenses, mental offenses. In the history of Bhrigu Muni testing Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, he commits these three kinds of offenses. The mental offenses are not as bad. The verbal offenses are worse, and corporal offenses are the ultimate. Certainly, if we punch a devotee or we strike a devotee, that's grossly offensive. If we insult a devotee, if we speak ill of a devotee, speak harshly to devotees, that's offensive. And even if we have a lesser estimation of devotees, or it's said, trying to remember where, someone might remind me, that if we're not happy to see devotees, that's offensive. That means we're keeping some material estimation of the devotees. I don't like this devotee. This devotee's here just, but we should appreciate the devotees.
Thank you.
To neglect devotees, to try to instruct a superior devotee, that's also offensive.
Maharaj, may I ask a quick follow-up question from that? In Kali Yuga, so is it correct that offenses made on the mental platform,
don't act.
Sorry?
That they supposedly don't act.
Okay.
If they're on the mental platform. But then who is it that came? We were hearing a counterexample the other day. Prabin, do you remember that? Where a mental offense against Jayādvaita Acharya was thinking ill of Sachi Devi was thinking ill of Advaita Acharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she won't get love for Krishna. So he took account even of that mental offense. So we should be careful and not coast that, it's just I'm just committing mental offenses. I'm not saying anything. But it will come out. Even if we're thinking negatively about someone, it's hard to conceal that. Now there's things in the chat box. Surbi Kunj says, does performing devotional service in the mode of detachment mean that we're not attached to the results of our devotional service? If one is attached to the spiritual benefit attained from devotional service, is the benefit less? Detachment means Jnana Karmadhya Navritam. Prabhupada speaks of that in the purport, that attachment to the results of fruitive activities, attachment to the results of mental speculation. That's detachment. Anasaktasya vishaya. To give up this attachment for jnana karmadi. That's detachment. And to be attached to the results of devotional service in the form of, material enjoyments. And, I performed I went to a kirtan and I met this beautiful girl and she smiled at me and I smiled at her and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's not exactly what we're looking for pure devotional service. That's the same material attachment that we're trying to give up. If I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but my interest is in my reputation, my false prestige, and so on, that's not so good. But to be attached to, what is the result of chanting Hare Krishna? That you become more attached to chanting Hare Krishna. No, that's good. One becomes more attached to chanting, to hearing, to associating with devotees, to serving the Lord, to appreciating the Lord. That's all good. We're not going to say, well, I'm not interested in that. We're earnestly interested in that. So Prabhupada criticized the Mayavadis that they're so detached, that they're detached from Krishna also. That's Mayavad. So we don't want to be detached from Krishna. We want to be detached from everything non-Krishna or everything contrary to Krishna consciousness, but not to hearing, chanting, and so on. Let's see. Maharshi Saraswati says, Maharshi had once said, even offending those souls that haven't reached spiritual perfection at the time has reaction. The reaction is just as severe. The example is his stepmother offended him when he was just a little boy, before he met Narad, before he took up the process of devotional service. But because Dhruva later became a pure devotee, his stepmother also had to suffer the death of her own son. So that's the example. Athena says, but doesn't Bhagavatam say that in Kali Yuga, one doesn't accrue bad karma for negative thoughts? Yes, it says that. That's a benefit if in Kali Yuga, whereas in other yugas, just performing bad or negative actions. Wouldn't offenses somewhat be the same here? Yes, but still, we shouldn't count on it. That, all right, I can, as long as I keep these offenses only within my mind, it'll be all right because we're in Kali Yuga and the offenses won't act. We experience within ourselves that if we hold grudges toward devotees, if we think ill of devotees, then it damages our own heart. It causes, that as long as we're thinking that stuff, we're not thinking of Krishna. Is that, we want to create a pure atmosphere within our hearts. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it said that by cleaning the Jagannath temple, the devotees were cleaning their hearts so that the heart would be a suitable place for the Lord to sit. So is that a suitable place, a place where my inner narrative is, he did this to me and I'll never forgive him because it was all for his own self-interest and it had nothing to do with Krishna. And he's just always had this grudge about me, and he did this and he did that, and he did the same thing to this other devotee also. And that's just, I know he's a devotee, but he just has this, he can't stop doing this and that. And, I'm going on and on and on. So there may not be, what would you say, manifest sinful reactions to that, but my consciousness is not pure. In my mind, I'm on this track of criticizing the devotees. So that's not going to help me. We don't want to think, well, whatever goes on in my mind, Kali Yuga doesn't really count. We're in the process of Chaito Darpana Marjana, cleaning the mind, cleaning the heart. So we don't want to set that aside or give that less importance on the grounds that this is Kali Yuga. Whatever's in the mind doesn't cause a sinful reaction. All right. Let's see. Vijay Krishna says, as soon as I acquire the mercy of the Lord, apart from becoming released from the quivering elements, what will happen to my life? Will I become more intelligent and less offensive? Yes. The mercy of the Lord means more intelligent doesn't mean that now you know, last time you applied to Oxford, you didn't get in, but now that you've got the mercy of the Lord, you become more intelligent, your scores get better and all of that. That's not the point. But real intelligence means buddha bhava samanvita, to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So it's by the mercy of Krishna that one becomes Krishna conscious. That's more intelligent and less offensive also. What is that? By chanting the holy name, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying that his offenses will diminish. All right. Shall we move forward? Yirendriyo paramota trashtrat mani pare haro yante tada klesha snashaha. When the senses are satisfied in the seer, supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished, as after a sound sleep. Purport. The quivering of the living entity, as described above, is due to the senses. Since the entire material existence is meant for sense gratification, the senses are the medium of material activities, and they cause the quivering of the steady soul. Therefore, these senses are to be detached from all such material activities. According to the impersonalists, the senses are stopped from work by merging the soul in the supersoul, Brahma. The devotees, however, do not stop the material senses from acting, but they engage their transcendental senses in the service of the transcendence, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In either case, the activities of the senses in the material field are to be stopped by cultivation of knowledge. And if possible, they can be engaged in the service of the Lord. The senses, well, let's move forward and then we can talk about this. The senses are transcendental in nature, but their activities become polluted when contaminated by matter. We have to treat the senses to cure them of the material disease, not stop them from acting, as suggested by the impersonalists. In Bhagavad Gita 259, it is said that one ceases all material activities only when satisfied by contact with a better engagement. Consciousness is active by nature and cannot be stopped from working. Artificially stopping a mischievous child is not the real remedy. The child must be given some better engagement so that he will automatically stop causing mischief. In the same way, the mischievous activities of the senses can be stopped only by better engagement in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, the tongue engaged in tasting prasadam, or remnants of foodstuff offered to the Lord, ears are engaged in hearing his glories, the hands engaged in cleaning the temple of the Lord, the legs engaged in visiting his temples, or when all the senses are engaged in transcendental variegatedness, then only can the transcendental senses become satiated and eternally free from material engagement. The Lord as the Supersoul residing in everyone's heart, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world, far beyond the material creation, is the seer of all our activities. Our activities must be so transcendentally saturated that the Lord will be kind enough to look upon us favorably and engage us in his transcendental service. Then only can the senses be satisfied completely and be no longer troubled by material attraction. So, Yadendriya Paromata, Yadendriyo Paramota, Trastrat Mani Pade Haro, Liyante Tada Klesha Samstupasyeva, Samstuptasyeva Krishna Shaha. One of the acharyas points out that when you're in deep sleep, samsupta means deep sleep. There are different levels of sleep. There's dreaming sleep, there's ordinary sleep, and then dreaming sleep, and then there's supta, deep sleep. In deep sleep, you don't even dream. You're so deeply sleeping that you don't even dream. So in that deep sleep, the mind is no longer active in dreaming. Similarly, when one is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, then the dreams of material existence no longer trouble one. The dreams of material existence automatically stop, and one becomes a liberated soul. But Srila Prabhupada points out that one doesn't reach that state of freedom from the material dream just by stopping the senses, but by engaging the senses. Indriya Paramata, the senses have to be satisfied. But now our Indriya Tripti, we're trying to satisfy the senses by sense gratification. And the result, as we find in one verse, is that the senses aren't satisfied and we're not satisfied. And still the senses don't release us. All right, you're not satisfied. We're not satisfied. Let's just end the relationship. No, you go on serving. Go on serving, go on serving. You must. But when one's senses are engaged in superior Krishna consciousness, one becomes joyful. The senses become happy. The mind becomes happy. Evam prasannam manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata. So this is, in one sense, this was Srila Prabhupada's secret. He engaged people, his early devotees, in service, either in hearing and chanting, or in cooking, or in printing, or in painting, or in some other engagement, doing accounts, typing. And by that engagement, the devotees became enthusiastic, they became happy. If Prabhupada had just, come and meditate and stop your mind, stop your senses, the result wouldn't have been the same. But in so many ways, Prabhupada engaged the devotees in practical activities, and the activities of hearing and chanting, deity worship. All of these engage and please the senses. The prasadam is very pleasing to the tongue. The sight of the deities is very pleasing to the eyes. The kirtan is very pleasing to the ears. Everything, all the senses become pleased by engagement in devotional service. So the senses merge into transcendence in the sense that they become integrated. They're Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevana. They're connected now with Krishna. Yeah. Yadendriyo paramota drashtra atmani pare haro. The Krishna is the ultimate seer, and our job is to be seen by Krishna. That this person is keen to serve me, this person wants to be my devotee, so that Krishna will be merciful. All right. Saraswati says, sometimes you find that you're more Krishna conscious in your dreams than in a wakeful mode. Why? You're having a good night. Sometimes we're more Krishna conscious when we're awake. Sometimes we have a wonderful dream. Either way, as soon as Krishna is there, we become fortunate. Kendra Prabhu.
Oh, thank you very much, Maharaj. There's a sentence kind of early in this purport where Prabhupada is saying the activities of the senses are to be stopped by cultivation of knowledge, and if possible, they can be engaged in the service of the Lord. I was thinking, Prabhupada says very similar things in many other places without that little qualifier in the middle, if possible.
Seems like I'm frozen here.
No, I can remove.
Oh, Kendra Prabhu's frozen. I'm not. Okay. And I'll come back on. For once, it's not my connection. Something is good. That, all right, somehow if we can stop the senses a little bit. We'll carry on, recording or no recording. Okay, we're back. Temporarily, one may be able to stop the senses. And if one is able to control the senses by force, all right, we can see that that's better. That somehow or other, by determination or by meditation or whatever, we're able to quiet the senses down. All right, that's good. But not as good as being engaged in devotional service. That's the real thing. it's hard to keep those senses quiet. Prabhupada gives the example, the mischievous child. It's all right, somehow or other, we quieted the child down, we shushed him up, and now he's quiet. But we know that that's not going to last. We know that that's not going to last. But if we give the child something better to do, then the child may be very happily engaged on and on and on. So the senses should be somehow or other quieted down, but if possible, if at all possible, by any means, they should be engaged in devotional service. Then there'll be lasting result. Now, let's see what Vijay Krishna Prabhu has to say here. Haristane aparad tare harinam tomas tane aparad nahi paran. The holy name delivers one who has committed an offense to Lord Hari. But if one commits an offense to you, to a devotee, there's no means of deliverance. Haristani aparade tare harinam tomas tane aparade nahi paritran. Okay, yes. Offending the devotee is much worse than offending the Lord. So we should please the devotees. That's the best. Again, just trying to avoid offenses to devotees is not as good as trying to serve the devotees and please the devotees. Then automatically the offensive mentality subsides. Just not to offend. Like Prabhupada gives the example that you invite some businessman for lunch and you feed him nicely and you say, "Sir, about that contract." So the goal is not just, I don't want to offend this person, but you want to please him. That's the point. So we want to please the devotees so that they'll be kind and merciful and not just negatively avoid offending. Senses are transcendental in nature, but their activities become polluted when contaminated by matter. Everything is Krishna's energy. Everything is ultimately transcendental. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada comments in the Bhagavad Gita that our business is to revive the transcendental nature of everything. Brahmarpanam Brahma Avir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Everything is Brahma or transcendental. But when disconnected from the service of the Lord, everything loses its transcendental nature. We're also transcendental, but we lose our transcendental nature when we turn away from the service of the Lord. But when we engage everything again in Krishna consciousness, then everything resumes its spiritual quality. Saraswati says, I forget the name of the rishi who meditated underwater, but became attracted to material things by seeing fishes engaged in sense gratification. Yes, Shobhari Muni. And he specifically, he offended Garuda, and that's traced as the cause of his fall down. And there's a question by Vijay Krishna above. Let's see. Once I heard that I shouldn't demand for God to come to my presence, but should act in such a way that God will become attracted toward what I've been doing. So in order to permanently, by the second, capture the attention of the Lord, what is it that I shouldn't do? Well, there's a long list in Nectar of Devotion of things that we shouldn't do. Long list of offenses to be avoided. Namaparad, Sevaparad, Vaishnavaparad. So one should avoid offenses. That guidance is there in Nectar of Devotion. These are the offenses. Avoid them. And in chanting, there are 10 offenses that we're trying to avoid. So in this way, avoid offenses and try to chant purely. Anything else? You can leave that aside for now. Okay. And I think we can proceed with Kirtan. And yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Purnamansa Pariprajacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunikiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navdeep Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. And
Thank you,
thank
Maharaj.
you, Haridas Prabhu, and to all the devotees.
Haribo, Haribo. Thank you, Gurudev.
Hari Hari.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Right.
Kantu Tattva. And Tattva. Hare Krishna.
To everyone for attending. Sorry I couldn't post links, but we had a really good rainstorm here and knocked out our power.
Oh boy.
Srimad
Jai.
Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai.
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 Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki
Jai.
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 Gaur Premanande.
Haribo, Haribo.